The origin of poker was formed many years ago while people were playing a Persian game called Asnas, and it's helping to create the idea of poker. Later in France, people were playing a game called poker, and in Germany, they were playing poker. This game was included betting and bluffing, just like poker when French people arrived in New Orleans in the 1700s. They were bringing poker with them. The game has changed slowly while Americans were playing in on Mississippi River. They were making a new rules and the game was becoming more popular. Between the 1800s, poker was spreading across the United States and people were creating new titles, poker and draw poker.
Poker was a game where players were using cards and chips. Every player was getting their cards and was looking to see if they were good or bad. Then everyone was betting chips depending on how much they grow and they would win. Some were raising the bet and others were following if they did not cross the cards. Until they were community cards that everyone using, the players were creating to make the best hand of cards. The hands were pairs, three of kings, straight of Russian. When the betting was ending, all the players were showing two cards. The player with the best hand was winning all the chip in the mind. If two players had the same hand, they were starting to put.
Number 3. Cards. Aces. The aces were acting as either the highest or lowest cards in the strikes, aiding the strategy possibilities. Kings, queens, and jacks. The face cards were representing high-ranking cards, often forming strong pairs or contributing to strikes and flushes. Number cards 2 and 2, 10. The numbered cards were filling in their hats, sometimes contributing to strikes, flushes, or even pairs and sets depending on the game situation. And suites, hearts, diamonds, clubs, spades. The suites weren't directly doing anything, but they were playing a crucial role and determining flushes and strike flushes.
In the poker deals cards have values which here being determined by their hierarchy ace, king, queen, jack. This here in the table of what is most valued and then followed by the respect numbers which here 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. But in the case the ace can worth 1 for the hand strike.
In poker, the combination had been organized according to their value. From the highest to the lowest, each player was using 5 cards to form one of them. 1. Royal Flush. It had been the best combination. It was made up of the 10, A, Q, key, and I of the same suite. 2. Straight Flush. It had consisted of 5 consecutive cards of the same suite, such as 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 of heart. 3. 4 of king. It had 4 cards with the same value. For example, 4 kings. 4. Full House. It was combining three of a kind and one pair, like 3 8 and 2 4. 5. Flush. It had shown 5 cards of the same suit, not in numerical order. 6. Straight. It had formed a sequence of 5 consecutive cards from different suites. 7. Three of a kind. It was made up of 3 cards with the same number. 2 pairs. It had included 2 different pairs, such as two nines and two fives. 9. One pair. It had only 2 cards of the same value. 10. Had card. When no combination appeared, the highest card was being considered to decide the winner.
When people were mixing the cards in professional poker game, they were following specific steps do, to do it correctly. First, they held all the cards together, checking that none were damaged. Then, they would divide the deck into two parts and mix them up by passing small groups of cards from one hand to the other. After that, they would join a riffle shuffle, where the edges of both parts were touching and were being released, slowing so the cards were falling and mixing together. Finally, they would placing the deck on the table and were cutting it in half to complete the process. By doing, by doing this, they were making sure the cards were being shuffled fairly and randomly before the game was started.
And now we have the environment. Well, this is pretty weird, since the environment is by itself pretty silent and calm, but we don't have to be tricked by that, since normally in the environment we can show any sign of happiness or sadness or even anger. Thanks that if we are in that state, we can tell the other players that we have a good or a bad hand. Thanks to that, that is things that if we got a good hand, we normally tend to be happy, and if we are happy, the other players can see it and even double its bets. Thanks to this, and in the poker, there is a pretty common face called the poker face. The poker face is pretty simple. It's just when we got our cards or even change it, we just have to get a normal expression like this. That it's not showing any expressions or any sign that we got a good or a bad hand.
Strategies. In order to secure the victory, we have to execute certain strategies. Poker professionals were doing these strategies back in the 2000s. Number 1. Fold when you are unsure. If you are getting a strong hand but you think you are beaten, just fold. It may sound easy, but in practice, by the way our brains work, it makes us curious to continue playing to the end. And because of that, new players often lose. Number 2. Attack when your opponent shows weakness. If the player was checking his hands and called for multiple bets, this means he was bluffing all the time, but we will be talking about what a bluff is later. And finally, play only if you feel like it. It's obvious, but if I was being frustrated and angry all day, playing poker won't be very helpful. For example, I was losing a lot of money in poker in 2007 because of my mental state. Just reconsider playing poker every once in a while.
Fans were watching these players closely, waiting to see what they would do next and cheering when they won. The poker world was always changing with new ways to play coming out. Poker was getting really popular all over the world, and famous players were starting to show up. These players were showing how smart they were and keeping everyone interested. They were getting lots of people to start playing and get better. Phil Hellmuth was constantly making news with his big personality at the table, and he kept getting more and more titles. Daniel Negrini was always winning his World Series of Poker titles, showing off how good he was. Poker was becoming more and more exciting, and these players were right in the middle of it, and it was amazing. Doyle Bronson was becoming a real legend, winning lots of tournaments and getting into Poker Hall of Fame.
The bluff was when someone in poker was saying they had good cards but they didn't. You and your friend were playing poker. You weren't getting good cards, but you were trying to make your friend think you had. So you were betting money. You were bluffing. Your friend didn't know your cards were bad. The bluff was changing poker. Players were using bluff to win games. They were betting a lot of money to make others think they had good cards. The players were getting more careful. They were thinking twice before betting. Someone, some players were losing a lot of money because they were believing the bluffs. The bluff it was making the game more exciting, but also more challenging.
The croupier was diligently managing every aspect of the game, because they were constantly shuffling the deck with practice hands, ensuring the cards were mixing thoroughly before each round as the players were placing their bets. The croupier was keeping a watchful eye on the action, making sure everyone was contributing the correct amount to the pot. During the hand, the croupier was meticulously distributing the whole cards and then the community cards, the flop, the turn, and the river at the appropriate times. They were announcing the betting rounds clearly and decisively, preventing any confusion at the table. Furthermore, they were always monitoring the flow of the game to ensure the pace was neither too fast nor too slow, specifically when a player was making a complex bet or rise. The croupier was patiently clarifying the rules and the current situation to everyone involved. Finally, as the players were revealing their hands at the showdown, the croupier was carefully calculating and verifying the winning hand, a complex task that demands specialty and accuracy. They were pushing to collect chips to the winner and then immediately were preparing for the next hand, collecting the used cards and beginning to shuffle anew. Their continuous actions were ensuring to the integrity and enjoyment of the entire poker season.